Hey there, my name's Curtis Lucas and you're watching Empire Building. Now, you may have noticed I made just a couple of changes around the studio here, pushing the camera back a little bit further. I figured, you know what, might as well bring this thing out and just set it up on the desk. It could come in handy from time to time. And I thought after that, you know what, why not make it a permanent fixture here? If nothing else, it makes for some interesting thumbnails. But I really wanted to just take a moment and appreciate where we are. I mean, you gotta admit, it feels pretty damn good to see Bitcoin above $60,000 again. And you have to admit to yourself that at least for some moments over the last several months, it felt as if this might be a long time coming. But here we are. The honey badger cannot be stopped. At the time of recording this, Bitcoin's currently sitting at $61,775, just barely 5% from all-time highs. That feels weird to say even. It's had a remarkable run here. Now, the more and more I look at this, the more and more I'm starting to get some pretty significant Elliot wave vibes. And for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, Elliot wave theory suggests that markets tend to move in these 5-wave patterns. So in bull cycles, what you see is in order to reach the top of that cycle, it's made up of 5 waves to reach the top. And each one of those waves is made up of 5 smaller waves. So the possibility that I'm wrestling with right now is that what we just witnessed may have actually been just the first wave. And that consolidation down to the bottom was the second wave. And we're just now beginning our third wave as we approach the old all-time high here. Now, the thing about Elliott waves is everyone who looks at them tends to count the waves differently. And I'm by no means an expert at this. So it's possible that what we actually witnessed was already the third wave. And the correction brought us down to the fourth wave, and this is our final leg up. Either or, it still suggests we've got a long way to go. The reason why I'm suggesting that this was probably only the first wave is that it's hard to identify any significant corrections in this initial wave. And also, one of the principles of an Elliott wave is that the third wave is always the largest of all of the waves. So if this is the third wave, then where's the first and second wave? It's kind of hard to identify that. And again, I have a hard time suggesting that this small correction here would identify that, because then that would make the third wave smaller than the first wave, which violates that law. Or, sorry, I should say theory. So if we're going to attempt this, the first wave would bring us from the bottom of that the COVID dip up to the top of that peak, down to the low we formed here. And the third wave is yet to be completed. But again, that suggests that our new all-time high could bring us easily to that $130,000 target that has been suggested by Mr. Stock to Flow, the entity known as Plan B. But then that also suggests that wherever we do find this new top, that won't be the top of that bull market. We shall see yet another further correction and then one final push to new all-time highs, assuming we are going to see a completion of this bear market. Now, I'm just throwing points on a chart here. None of these mean anything, except to suggest that what looks like sky-high valuations today, in the not-too-distant future, could look like small little bumps in the road. And when you zoom back at the old former all-time high at $20,000, it simply vanishes, as these cycles have a tendency to do. And this is the nature of exponential growth. Human beings are notoriously bad at evaluating exponential growth because the vast majority of the things that surround us don't behave that way. We're used to linear relationships. And unfortunately, that's why most people are so bad at saving, is because they underestimate the power of compounding interest. But in this case, compounding exponential growth can lead to mind-blowing results. But I also have to caution people from getting overly excited. As we've just witnessed, things don't always play out the way we think they might. This time around, I'm going to be doing things a little bit differently. I'll talk more about that as time goes on. We've got plenty of time here. But for the time being, patience is the name of the game. There's no need to get fancy. There's no need to try and time when the bulk of this move is going to occur. In the short term, anything can happen. And even if you do have a crystal ball, it's not going to tell you what's going to happen next. But it's rather fun to touch. But one thing I would like to invite is any new viewers of the channel that are interested in supporting my work. You can head over to Patreon. The link is down in the description. I'm working on trying to create some additional content exclusively for Patreon subscribers. Currently, it's a very small group, but it's a very active Discord channel. So if you ever want to be able to have any discussions with like-minded individuals, there's a lot of smart people in this group. I'm on there from time to time throughout the day. I try to keep an eye on it, but obviously I've got to keep making these videos. I've got a business to run, but I too try to keep up to date with the conversations that are happening there. So as we enter this next wave, as many of you probably noticed, I'm putting out a lot more content these days, and I'm really trying hard to get the channel to surpass 10,000 subscribers by the end of October. The only way to do that is to keep pumping out that content and feeding that algorithm. That algorithm is a beast that needs to be fed.
Feed me, Carbon! Feed me now! I'm starving!
But it's not an easy thing to do. It's part of me building my own empire, but Patreon is a way for me to connect directly with some of my viewers and for them to interact with one another, share ideas, not just about cryptocurrencies and blockchain and mining stocks, but also finances and investing in general. Some of those guys are really big into real estate. So I'm going to be creating different chat groups so that things can be a little bit more organized, especially if we're going to start seeing more people join us. And don't be alarmed if you see some of those higher tier Patreon supporters. Really, that's just for people that really want to be able to support what I'm doing. You don't get a whole lot back in return. The vast majority of the benefit comes from the very entry-level tier 1. The rest of it is going to get you a little bit more in terms of merchandise that Patreon makes available to you. But that's the best thing I've got for a pitch right now. I want to thank everyone that has ever supported me on Patreon. It means the world, and it's really gone a long way to help me maintain my work and continue to build this channel. If Bitcoin can make it to $100,000 by the end of the year, maybe we can bring this channel to 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Anything can happen. That's all for this one. Now let's get back to empire building.